How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of Beared Down Uncut, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. Should Devin Hester be inducted into the Hall of Fame? And should Patrick Mannelly also be enshrined in Canton, Ohio? We're going to be answering these questions today and many more, talking about a lot of Bears and their cases for the Hall of Fame. Welcome back to the show, guys. I would like to say we are trying to hit 1.5k subs by the end of the month, so if you are new to the channel, do us a favor and subscribe. We're 37 away. We're going to keep making content every day for you guys, grinding it out. And it's basically as simple as that. I would like to say before I introduce myself and my co-hosts, you're seeing this on Thursday evening, early evening, and we were supposed to put out our positional review today, but we're taking a week off from that, and you will see the next episode on the upcoming Tuesday on the tight end position. That should be a fun one. So that one will come out on Tuesday, May 26th. But let's get right into it. I am your host, Chris Malpe, and today I am joined by my co-hosts, Parth and Jaylen McClinton. Guys, the Bears have the most Hall of Famers of all time. I don't think we all would mind if many more got inducted. How you guys doing today?
Doing good, just another day here in Chicago. The weather's nice outside, so I enjoy the weather.
Definitely, it's good. The weather feels nice. It's 110 degrees right now.
Woo!
Kind of burning, but it's pretty good though.
Absolutely. So, my goodness gracious. So today we're going to be talking about 5 Bears and making cases for them. Or not making cases for them, talking about their careers in Chicago. And I guess just discussing whether or not they could possibly make the Hall of Fame, whether it be a first ballot or a second or third ballot down the road. So let's get right into it. My apologies, I have a little bit of a cough. But there's no better player to start with than our recent guest on the show, Patrick Mannelly. And I can't read off many snaps on him because he's a long snapper. I can't read off many stats on him. But he's the Chicago Bears career leader for games played with 245 games. The longest tenured player in Chicago Bears history with 16 seasons. Also known as, I would say, the greatest long snapper, not of all time, but the greatest modern day long snapper in recent years. I think playing that long for an organization speaks pretty highly, if you ask me personally. An organization with such rich history, guys like Walter Payton, Brian Urlacher coming through, and that's just 2 of many, many players that are already in the Hall of Fame, playing longer than them, making your mark on this organization, something that Patrick Mannelly did very well. Parth, I'm going to ask you, obviously, I'm pretty sure there's a lack of Hall of Famers as far as long snappers go up there in Canton, Ohio, but do you think one day that Mannelly could possibly sneak in?
I think he deserves it. We talked to Mannelly about how the long snapping position's basically underrated. They have to be perfect every time, and he was perfect for 16 years for one team. That definitely means that he did something great. And I feel like if there would be any long snapper that would make the NFL, I think it should start off with Mannelly.
Jaylen, what do you think?
I would like to say yes, but due to I don't think it's a lot of long snappers or any long snapper in the Hall of Fame right now. So I think it would be very hard for him to get in there. He's eligible this year, but I definitely don't think he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer just because of his position. But if they will allow him to get in there, I definitely think he deserves it.
So Mannelly played with 8 Hall of Famers throughout his career. He said that a couple of years ago in an interview with the Windy City Gridiron. I think he personally does deserve it, and I think it'd be cool if he was the first one to make it in. There's not much more to say. Parth covered it very well. It speaks really highly when you play that long for an organization, and I think it's important that he not only is the first long snapper in the Hall of Fame, but just an important one here in Chicago. I think he definitely, if the Bears ever decide to, which I think they eventually will, maybe when they renovate Soldier Field, extend their Ring of Honor, I think he also definitely deserves to make it in that. Next one we've got is Olin Kreutz. Let me read off a little bit about him. 6-time Pro Bowler, a first-team All-Pro in 2006, second-team All-Pro in 2005. He made the NFL 2000s All-Decade Team. If you remember, they recently released the 2010s All-Decade Team, so that's a very big honor. He was a consensus All-American in college, first-team All-Pac-10 in 1997. He also won the Morris Trophy for one of the best offensive linemen in the country. He's a 4-time Brian Piccolo Award winner, 2003, 4, 2009 and 10. This award is given out to a rookie and veteran player on the Bears who exemplify courage, loyalty, teamwork, dedication, and sense of humor of the late Brian Piccolo, whatever you want to say. Olin Kreutz, definitely an impressive resume. I think one of the best offensive linemen in that 2000s decade. I think he also could make it. I'm going to give my case first here. A 6-time Pro Bowler, obviously never won that Super Bowl. That really helps a lot of players out. Obviously was on that team that made the Super Bowl in 2006 to 2007. Another under-the-radar player similar to Manley. I think you give it a couple of years and he could make it. I'm not sure what his history has been on the ballot, but you look at the history of the Bears, you look at their strong offensive lines throughout the last 100 years, there hasn't been many of them, if I'm being honest. But Olin Kreutz, definitely one of the best offensive linemen in team history, and I think also one of the best offensive linemen in that decade. So I'm going to give Olin Kreutz the green light, honestly. I think down the road, maybe there's a chance that he could make it. Obviously, there's so many offensive linemen, and the odds of them making it in general, you have to be really, really good in this league in order to earn a spot there to get inducted. Parth, I'm going to pass it back to you. What do you think of Olin Kreutz? You think he could one day slip there into Canton?
I think he will. I mean, I think he'll be one of those players which takes time to slip into Canton. He's definitely underrated, as you said. He was a 2000 All-Decade center for the Bears and the NFL. And again, he was just another hardworking player. Manley said he was the hardest working player he's been ever around. So another guy that the Bears just to put in the Bears ring of honor, I guess. He's just another great player that the Bears had in Bears history.
What do you think, Jaylen? I mean, you can be concise here if you need to. What do you think about Olin Kreutz?
Yeah, I definitely feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's a 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. It might take him. It might take him a little minute to get in there, but as long as he gets in the Hall of Fame, because he definitely deserves to, I'll be definitely okay with that.
Next is another one that I'm going to bring up on the defensive side of the ball. Actually, the only one we have today on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe we can make another episode on Lance Briggs one day. But let's take a look here at Charles Tillman. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro in 2012, Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award winner in 2013. He's won that Piccolo Award 3 times in 2003, 2008, and 2013. 912 total tackles, 44 forced fumbles. The peanut punch is really his thing. Also has recovered 9 fumbles, 140 pass deflections, 38 interceptions, 9 defensive touchdowns. Arguably the biggest piece on that defensive team that was so great for so many years behind Brian Urlacher. I 100,000% think Charles Tillman deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I believe he becomes eligible for induction very soon if he hasn't already. Played 1 year, obviously, there with the Carolina Panthers and retired as a Bear. But an incredible, very impressive resume in Chicago, number 33. We're hoping Jaylen Johnson can live up to that hype, choosing Peanut's number. And Peanut obviously allowed that. I mean, he didn't have to allow it. But Peanut obviously probably am someone who thinks high of Jaylen Johnson. And Peanut's one of the best cornerbacks we've ever had, if not the best of all time. Jaylen, I'm going to pass it to you. Charles Tillman, I mean, I think this is a pretty obvious one, at least for Bears fans. Do you think he gets into the Hall of Fame eventually?
I think he deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. It might take him a minute too because he was only a 2-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time All-Pro in his amazing career. So I think it takes him a long time. But I definitely feel like they might cheat him out of the Hall of Fame just because of his accolades. He didn't have that many. But if he doesn't make the Hall of Fame, I definitely feel like that's going to be a problem for a person who caused that many fumbles as a cornerback. He wasn't a defensive lineman, he wasn't a linebacker. This is a cornerback who basically made the peanut punch a very famous thing. A lot of people, when they do that, they call it a peanut punch, and that's from him. So definitely feel like he should make the Hall of Fame. If he doesn't, it's definitely going to be crazy.
He will become eligible here in 2020, retired after his 2015 campaign with the Carolina Panthers. Parth, I'm going to pass it back to you. Charles Tillman, this one seems like an obvious one. I said it already. 12 years for the Bears, helped them make Super Bowl XLI, also played a little bit there for the Panthers. He made Super Bowl 50 with them. Do you think Charles Tillman gets into the Hall of Fame?
This one's going to be tough. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I mean, he only had 2 Pro Bowls and for 1 first-team All-Pro. I mean, he did invent the peanut punch. He had 44 forced fumbles. That's an insane amount of forced fumbles. If you look at the other guys, other Hall of Famers, I'm pretty sure there's no way. Other cornerbacks that made the Hall of Fame, I'm pretty sure they did not have 44 forced fumbles. But Peanut's accolades are much weaker, I guess you could say. But I'd love to see Peanut in the Hall of Fame. I just don't think it will happen in the near future, it will be another one that takes a while, especially with how defensive players are always cut short in the league with accolades and stuff.
Punching the ball away from players, well-timed punch, commonly known as the peanut punch. Also worth mentioning that Tillman joined the FBI in 2018 after retiring from the NFL, so he's just a straight-up savage in general. Next one we've got is a very interesting one, and another player I think deserves to make the Hall of Fame. We got Matt Forte, two-time Pro Bowler, Pro Football Writers of America All-Rookie Team in 2008 after he came out of Tulane, All-Conference USA Team times 2, 2005 and 2007. I think it's important to mention college accolades as well. He won that Piccolo Award twice in 2008 and 2015. Almost 10,000 career rushing yards between the Bears and the New York Jets when he spent a couple seasons there. 9,796 to be exact. 4.2 rushing yards per average, 54 rushing touchdowns, 554 receptions for 4,672 yards and 21 touchdowns. I mean, if you look at Forte, he was just an absolute workhorse in Chicago. Here before Jordan Howard, he really carried the weight. Someone who always looked to get better. Also a very humble player as well. I think this is a player that does get in. You know, I'm an optimist. I've said yes to everyone, and I'm going to say yes to everyone because I brought these players onto this episode for a reason. But Forte, I think he was outshined a little bit back in those days, you know, by players like LaShawn McCoy, Frank Gore, and LaDainian Tomlinson. Players that obviously were really flashy on paper, but if you look at Forte, he was incredibly productive throughout his time in Chicago, only got better, and he retired a Bear. Definitely one of the better players on offense, and one of the best running backs the Bears have had of all time behind Gale Sayers and Walter Payton. Parth, I'm passing it back to you. Matt Forte, what do you think? What's the verdict?
I think he should. He was a lot of fun to watch. You know, he's a great receiving back, great running back. He was basically everything. He was Le'Veon Bell before Le'Veon Bell. Let's put it that way. That's what I guess Le'Veon Bell reminds me of Matt Forte. Matt Forte, it's going to take him a while. Like, again, I mean, there's a lot of Bears in the Hall of Fame. So, you know, the NFL might have its bias against Bears. You know, we see the media with its bias against the Bears already. So that might be another thing. But Matt Forte would be a great player to see in the Hall of Fame, another workhorse back, another great guy. And he's still involved with Bears stuff, which is, I think, cool.
The Bears do hold the record for the most individuals enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and that's most definitely not going to stop anytime soon. Jaylen, I'm going to pass it back to you. Matt Forte is a really interesting one, you know, a very overlooked player throughout his time in Chicago. Do you think he gets enshrined in Canton?
I just did the same thing with Peanut. You know, he didn't get that many accolades. He was only a two-time Pro Bowler and one-time All-Pro in his career. So I feel like I definitely feel like he was cheated out of, you know, multiple Pro Bowls and a couple of All-Pros. He was a great receiving back. He was a great receiving back, a great running back. We already know that. He rushed for over 1,000 yards multiple times with us. I definitely feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to try to say yes for every player, even though I definitely think every player that we're going to talk about should probably make it. They might not, but yes, he should definitely be in the Hall of Fame.
If you look back at the 1985 Bears team, 4 players were included in the Hall of Fame. Richard Dent, Dan Hampton, Walter Payton, Mike Singletary, and they were coached by Hall of Fame coach and tight end Mike Ditka. Obviously, a lot of history with the Bears in the Hall of Fame. And next, we've got a fun one. Devin Hester, who I like to call the greatest return man of all time. I think everyone here agrees with that. Here's some accolades for you. 4-time Pro Bowler, 2006, 7, 10, and 14. 3-time First Team All-Pro, 2006, 7, and 10. Second Team All-Pro in 2011. 3-time NFL Alumni Special Teams Player of the Year, 2006, 7, and 10. Second Team 2000s All-Decade Team. First Team 2010s All-Decade Team. NFL 100th Anniversary All-Time Team over Deion Sanders, who also was a great returner, but obviously also made that team as a cornerback. Also won the Brian Piccolo Award in 2006. He holds 3 NFL records, 20 total return touchdowns, it's a career record, 14 punt return touchdowns, it's a career record, 6 return touchdowns in a season, which is tied. He also had 255 receptions for 3,311 receiving yards, 16 receiving touchdowns, and 11,028 return yards. He is eligible for Hall of Fame induction in 2021 after he played a year for the, I think it was the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks. He retired as a Bear. I'm going to be completely honest. I expect Hester to make it as a first ballot Hall of Famer in 2021. I think really highly of his play. The greatest return man of all time. I think even Deion Sanders has agreed to that. An incredible player. I mean, there's not much more to be said about Hester. Book him in, first ballot 2021. I'm sticking him in the Hall of Fame. Easy. Parth, the question really isn't so much will Hester make the Hall of Fame, but is it will he be a first ballot Hall of Famer in 2021?
He should be, and there's no question about that. He changed the game. He added the special teams aspect to it, I guess you could say. I mean, he got a kickoff return in the Super Bowl, first play of the game, which was probably one of the best moments in Super Bowl history if you think about it. He's just another generational player that the Bears had. Super fun to watch, electrifying. I remember I was at a game where he actually had returned a punt return, which was awesome, just to see that live in person. And even Manley said he's one of the fastest players he's ever seen on the field. Mm-hmm. Super flashy, super fun to watch. I would be shocked if he was in the first ballot.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty easy one. Obviously, you look at Hester, the Windy City Flyer, very special player. Jaylen, I'm passing it to you. The question really isn't will he make the Hall of Fame, because I think it's a guarantee that he will, but will he be a first ballot Hall of Fame inductor in 2021? Inductee, excuse me.
He should definitely be a first ballot Hall of Famer. This Devin Hester is one of the best returners of all time. I don't think that's any type of discussion. He made special teams, in 2006 he made special teams one of our strengths in defense. That's mainly one of the reasons why we went to the Super Bowl. First play of the game, he returned a kickback. A lot of teams didn't like kicking to him. That's why I say he's one of the best of all time. Even with the Falcons, he returned. I remember Deion Sanders. He returned the kick. He returned the kick when he was playing with the Atlanta Falcons, and Deion Sanders was there broadcasting the game. And I see Deion Sanders start crying because he talked about how Devin Hester is one of the best returners of all time, and how if any person to break his record, he would want it to be Devin. So from getting recognition from a player like Tom. Just shows you how much of a returner that he was respected as.
An 11-year career after being a second-round pick to the Bears out of Miami, Florida. An incredible career for the 5'11" Devin Hester, and he also did a decent job there in the receiving and rushing games as well. One more question for you guys before we head off. Obviously, we talked about Kreutz, Manley, Tillman, and Forte before this, and Lance brings up another great discussion, as do some other players like Roberto Garza. You look at these guys, and, we obviously hope all of them make the Hall of Fame, and I'm pretty sure most of them will. But if you guys had to pick one of them to make the Hall of Fame outside of Devin Hester, which one would it be? Who do you think is the most deserving? Parth, I'm going to start with you.
I'm going to go with Patrick Manley, just because he was the longest tenured Bear, and we just talked to him a couple of days ago. I know that was one of the best conversations I've ever had with anyone. And I feel like just that long snapper position is heavily underrated in the NFL, and it would be super cool to see the first long snapper to be in the Hall of Fame. And another perk would be he would be a Bear, and we talked to him. So just
absolutely.
Cool things on
say we talked to a Hall of Famer. That would be very cool. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Matt Forte here. I really think he was overlooked throughout his career. I think there's no denying that. I think a lot of teams really respect what he was able to do throughout his career. Just that workhorse, continuing to fight through injuries, do the best for his team. Maybe not the most flashy resume, but almost 10,000 career rushing yards. 54 rushing touchdowns, 21 receiving touchdowns. A very flashy player in his own sense that I think was overlooked. And I'm pretty sure if you ask guys like LaShawn McCoy, like Frank Gore, like really good running backs throughout these days, I think if you asked any of them, even like the new running backs now, like Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, I think if you ask them, will Matt Forte make the Hall of Fame? I'm pretty sure they would say he definitely deserves it. So I'm going to go Matt Forte as my player I would pick if one of these guys had to make the Hall of Fame. Jaylen, I'm passing it to you. You can choose the same player as you want if you want, but who do you think deserves to make the Hall of Fame out of these guys?
I'm gonna go different than you guys' two answers. I'm gonna go Peanut Tillman. I talked about this earlier. For a person who made punching the ball out a very famous thing for players that players still use today, it's crazy, and he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He used the technique and made it famous, and he caused a lot of fumbles as a quarterback, which was just crazy. So I definitely feel like out of Devin Hester, he should make the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's pretty much going to do it for episode 37 of Uncut. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you want more content from us head over to our website, beareddown.com, for articles, columns, and blogs. You can find the links to our Instagram fan pages down in the description, and you can also follow the podcast on Instagram, and if you're on Twitter, at Beared Down. Parth, Jaylen McClinton, been a good discussion today. Talking about Hall of Famers, obviously such a great history on this team. A lot of players have been enshrined, and a lot are also looking to get enshrined and inducted here in the near future. Any last words, guys?
It's just it's like a super cool validation to have the most Hall of Famers in the league. Hopefully we can just win some Super Bowls to match up with that now.
Absolutely.
I would definitely agree with Parth. To be a fan of a very historic franchise like the Bears and have all of these great players and Hall of Fame players that play for us over the years is definitely a good thing to be a part of. Make sure you guys are staying safe and bear down.
Absolutely. Continue to stay safe. I think we're really close to the peak in Illinois. J.B. Pritzker, it is currently May 21st, but he said on May 19th that he thinks we may have hit it. Nationwide, it's still going up, but we're just going to continue to hope that things get better moving forward and continue to stay positive. As always, Chicago, do us a favor and stay safe. And as always, bear down. We'll see you in the next episode, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.